everybody, Peppermint here, and welcome back to another episode of the Anomaly. When we last left off, things started to get really interesting. We're here with Lena talking about the hum and conspiracy theories and just some really interesting stuff. So I'm eager to see where things are going to go this episode. I remembered one of the more detailed articles I read from last night's search, the one about the Air Force's Aural Research Program. Maybe there could be some validity behind the claims that the military is somehow behind these strange noises. But even if they were, it's not like they were hurting anyone. I guess it really was no big deal after all. I kept staring at the KVM monitor, but my attention wasn't focused on what's going on screen. I really am out of it today. I definitely should have slept more than I did. Ross and Valerie entered the shed noisily, lacking any sort of stealth and grace, breaking me from my daze. Ah, there they are. Hey, bro. Skipping lunch to hang out in the shed without us, huh? I see how it is. Sorry, guys. I just wasn't feeling lunch today. No worries. So, how are the locks working? Do they fit all right? Oh yeah, they look great. Thanks, Ross. Ross walked up beside me, squatted down, and took a quick peep at the screen. Snooping around on the network. Nice. Those new cards are finally getting some use. Anything interesting going on? Not really, to be completely honest with you. No bueno. You'd think that lunch would be an ideal time to pull a network snapshot with all the students on their phone and all. Let me see. Val wedged herself between Ross and I and took the reins. After scrolling for a few seconds, she highlighted a packet with a considerably high file size and opened it to display what an ordinary person would likely describe as a bunch of random letters and numbers. So a person like me. She copied the hexadecimal into an editor, exported it as an image, and opened the file to display what looks like a photo taken from someone's phone. They looked like test answers. Whoa. That bitch. She said she didn't have the answers. Trying to get a leg up on your test today? Quiz. It's a quiz. Sue me. This is perfect, though. I didn't even know we had a quiz until just before lunch, when Amy told me about how she had already taken it this morning. So you asked her for the answers. Shameful display, Val. Shameful display. I mean, I know I'm not very close with her, but I thought she'd at least be willing to throw me a bone since I was in a bit of a sticky situation. You can get in trouble for sharing test answers with other people, though, at least in college, so I wouldn't share the answers with you either, Val. Not if it risked me getting expelled. Not like it matters now. I got what I wanted. This girl ain't flunking a quiz anytime soon. God, her boobs look massive in that pose. Like... not to be a total pervert or anything, but my god. Anyways, she forwarded the photo from the server to her phone. Seconds later, her phone buzzed, signaling her receipt of the message. She pulled out her phone and verified that the picture transferred alright when the clock on her lock screen caught her eye. Oh shit, we lost track of time. I quickly jerked my head towards the server racks and looked at the time display on the KVM screen. Let's bounce. Ross, can you look up? I've got class 2, you know. But big bro, I thought you didn't care about being absent. Touché. I would be way too nervous to just steal test answers like that. I don't know. I was a pretty good student, though, so maybe that's just me. After class, I waited in the lobby for Kiera. I told her after lunch during philosophy that I'd walk part of the way home with her. Tucker. Hey, what's up? About to head home. You waiting for you-know-who? Kiera, how did you ever guess? Intuition, bro. But anyway, I'll let you two have your time together alone. Just remember to wrap it up before you... We are not at that point in our relationship yet. I hurriedly covered Ethan's mouth with my hand as Kiera walked over from behind him. I really hoped for both of our sakes that she didn't just hear that. Hey, Kiera, ready to head out? As ready as I'll ever be. You coming too, Ethan? Nah, you two kiddos have fun. I'm gonna see if Ross and Val are still around. See ya. As he walked away towards the computer science labs, he turned back to me with a smug grin and winked. That kid truly was the definition of one-track mindedness. I ignored him and headed out of the building alongside Kiera. It was a bit colder today than it had been recently, probably due to the fact that the sky had been heavily overcast since before I woke up. I puffed a large, slow breath of warm air into my hands, rubbed them together to generate a bit of friction, and placed them in the pockets of my hoodie. It's a little chilly out, huh? She covered her nose with her scarf and folded her arms across her chest in an effort to retain body heat. Give her your hoodie, Tucker. Be a man. Yeah, which is pretty strange. It usually doesn't get this cold out until around this time next month. Well, if there's one thing I can handle, it's the cold. I just wish I'd dressed a little warmer. That's so? Does it usually get really cold over there in California? She paused for a moment and looked down at the road in front of her. A little suspicious there, Kiera. Maybe you're not actually from California? Just saying. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Even worse than the cold is the crippling heat during the summers. I'm not particularly fond of walking to school drenched in sweat, to be honest. That's reasonable. I don't think anybody really is. So what's home like anyway? Well, it's certainly not as beautiful as Colorado, that's for sure. It's nothing special, but to be honest, I do kind of miss it. Putting myself in her shoes, I'd probably feel a little heavy-hearted too. I mean, having to move around so often must be pretty tough in itself. Building relationships only to leave after a few years must get old fast. I remembered the last time I brought up her home back west during our walk home on her first day here. Maybe I should change the subject before I spoil the mood like I did last week. Well, on the bright side, you're in arguably the most beautiful states in the U.S. Yeah, that's for sure. Several minutes later, I found myself approaching the intersection that divided our respective routes home. I really like our routine walks both to and from school. I wonder if it'd be rude of me to ask to walk her home. Say, why don't I walk you home for once? I don't mind walking the extra distance if you... No. Oh, that was blunt. Her expression. It's changed again to something less enthusiastic than her normal self. And the short, clipped answer was more aggressively firm than I had ever seen her before. I guess I really did overstep my boundaries by asking. She quickly shakes away her expression, stops, and turns to me with a smile. No thanks, I mean. I rather like the little bit of alone time I have between here and my house, to tell you the truth. It's nothing personal, really. Like last time, she stepped forward and wraps me in a big bear hug before hurrying off in the direction of her house. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Tucker. See you. At least her attitude changed considerably from last time. I was worried at first, though. Judging by her initial expression, I thought for sure that things were going to end up the way they did on Thursday. Oh well. Things worked out better than I had hoped this time around, so I couldn't really complain one bit, could I? I mean, she's still being really weird. Like, her home situation must be really strange if she was that assertive about us not walking her home. I'm not buying the alone time excuse. That just doesn't really make much sense. Stepping into homeroom after the routine walk to school with Kiera, I found myself feeling much more awake and alert than I did yesterday. I didn't even remember what time I ended up going to sleep last night, but it must have been early. I only really remembered getting home, half-assedly doing my homework, and making myself dinner before hauling my exhausted body off to bed. I guess all that mattered was that I was able to catch up on some much-needed rest. Today was going to be a breeze. Only 5 minutes had elapsed before the start of homeroom, and the class was already blaring with the sound of my classmates talking among one another. Kira was working diligently on an assignment of hers that was due later in the day, so I figured I'd leave her be for now. Come to think of it, sitting here in silence while waiting for the bell to ring really made me realize that I wasn't exactly the most loquacious guy in school. Before Kiera arrived in the Springs last week, I was never as talkative as I am with her in the mornings. Just then, Mrs. Gonzalez quelled the students' clamor to take attendance, derailing my thought process entirely. It seemed as though everyone was here except for Garrett, for the third day in a row. Now I'm starting to think his disappearance has to do with the hum, because the timing is just too convenient. Also, I was kidding when I said he was dead last time. I don't know if that was clear, but I'm pretty sure he's not actually dead, because we'd probably know about it. Kira, whose attention had been diverted from her work, turned to me with a worried expression. Hey, do you think that Garrett kid is alright? 3 days absent without any kind of excuse seems kind of strange, doesn't it? Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you'd think the staff would know the reason for his absence by now, even if they're not telling us. Well, do you know much about him? Not too much. I do know where he lives, though. Maybe we could check up on him. Coincidentally, Garrett only lived a few blocks down the road from Ross and Lena. I'd actually walked past his house several times on my way to hang out at Ross's on the weekends. Great idea. Think he'd be home right about now? Well, it's still pretty early, so it's probably unlikely that he's out anywhere. Wait, right now? As in cutting class? Of course. You do it all the time, don't you? Not nearly as much as Ross, but yeah, cutting class doesn't bother me. I was just thinking that maybe I'm starting to become a bad influence. We both got quite a good laugh out of that one, but it still held some truth. Was she this prone to breaking the rules back home? Who knew? She seems like a troublemaker, if you ask me. I'm sure she's used to this. After homeroom, Kira and I sneaked out the exit near the sports complex and began to make our way towards Ross's end of the suburbs. I tried my best to stick to back roads and streets with less traffic to avoid getting spotted or reported. If anyone was getting a truancy hit, it was gonna be Ross, not me. We eventually round up on Riverside Drive, which, as the name suggested, ran alongside a river with quaint suburban housing lining the opposite side of the street. Unfortunately for us, Garrett Street ran parallel to Riverside on the opposite side of the water, and we still had another half of a mile to go before we reached a bridge. Oh well, I guess this gave me more time to talk to Kira. So, why do you think he hasn't been showing up to school? Garrett, that is. My best guess is that he's probably sick or something. Well, don't you think his parents would have called in and let the staff know that he'd be out so long if he was? True, but it's still a valid possibility. What's your take? I'd say he's playing hooky. He's probably running to the answering machine to delete the school's messages regarding his absence every morning so his parents don't get suspicious. You've done this before, haven't you? She laughed somewhat nervously and rubbed the back of her neck. Yep, I knew it. You're a troublemaker. Well, that was really all the confirmation that I needed. Maybe a few times, but I never let it get in the way of my grades. Well, at least you never got caught. Well, about that. Wait, don't tell me you actually did. How'd that end up? We stopped at the bridge so Kira could look over the water as she explained her past exploit gone awry. Well, on the second day, my dad came back shortly after leaving for work. I think he said he forgot his ID or something. Anyway, not even 5 minutes after he walks through the door, the phone rings. It was the school, asking about where I'd been. I swear swear they couldn't have picked a worse time to call. Yeah, talk about bad timing. When I was in high school, I skipped a pretty good amount of school, but it was because my mom just didn't care. I would be like, Mom, I'm having a bad day. And she'd be like, all right, well, have fun at home. So, I mean, I can't really relate. What happened after that? Let's just say I had a ride to school every day after that. Ouch, how long did that last? Pretty much my entire freshman year. Double ouch. It wasn't the worst thing that could have happened, though. I was expecting to be grounded forever, but things didn't necessarily work out that way, did they? I suppose not. We continued on our journey, passing house after house on each side of the street. After several more minutes of walking, we finally reached Garrett's house. I walked up to ring the doorbell when Kira interjected. Are you sure this is the right place? Now that she mentioned it, I wasn't 100% sure. Damn it, she's making me doubt myself. I'm fairly certain this is Garrett's house. Before I could finish my sentence, the door opened up behind me with a young, pale, red-haired adolescent standing on the other side of the doorway. That was Garrett, all right, but he wasn't looking so hot. I almost didn't recognize him at first glance. Whoa. He's short and kind of rotund. He looks a little scary. I don't know. That's not what I expected. Oh, hey, Tucker. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in class right now? Shouldn't you be in class right now? You're one to talk. Was this guy serious? All irony aside, his attitude definitely seemed a bit off. I mean, he wasn't always the most talkative person, but I'd never quite seen him this exhausted. His posture was lazily slouched, and his eyes, which hadn't made contact with either Kier's or mine since we had arrived, were sunken with dark bags formed below them. It's like the soul had been drained from his very body. Sure, it was creepy, but it was even more cause for concern. I bet he's being mind controlled. MK Ultra. I think that's mind control. I don't know. I know a good amount of conspiracy theories, but I'm not like super well versed in them. We should be asking you the same thing. You alright, man? Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've been better. Garrett looked up for a moment after he realized that there was another person standing behind me. I don't think he ever had the opportunity to meet Kiara since she arrived. Well, that's awkward. I moved out of the way so she could introduce herself. Hey, I'm Kira, the new girl. Nice to meet you, Garrett. We just wanted to swing by to make sure everything was alright. You've been gone for 3 days with no notice after all, so everyone's a bit worried. After a few seconds of silently staring at his feet, Garrett lifted his head to look at us and fully opened the door he had been holding on to. The poor guy seems like he hasn't slept very well in a long while. Come on in. I'm not trying to let my neighbors see me. I feel like we're about to get murdered. Kira and I, a bit surprised by the sudden invitation, walked through the door, following Garrett past the kitchen and into his room, which appeared shockingly clean given his apparent state of well-being. As Kira and I made ourselves comfortable, I thought to myself how strange the whole situation was. I knew Garrett and all, but I was never close enough to him to warrant an invite to his house. And here I am, hanging out in his room with a new girl. I was really outside my element. A small part of me wished I had invited Ross or Ethan to come along, but after a bit of thought, it occurred to me that it was probably for the best that I didn't. They weren't exactly the most cognizant of other people's feelings, and given Garrett's condition, they would probably have done more harm than good. Well, I can honestly say I'm surprised that anyone bothered to check up on me. Though, if I'd been expecting anyone, I would have probably pictured it being a teacher, not you guys. Also, I just added a probably in there that wasn't there. I'm having trouble reading today. Like I keep adding in words that aren't there. I apologize. Some days I just can't. I just can't read. Today's one of those days. Sorry to disappoint. Tucker over here was just a bit worried, so he insisted that we come to see if everything was all right. Let's just say it was a mutual decision. Kira and I shared in a shallow laugh, trying to be conscientious of the obvious elephant in the room. Neither one of us knew anything about what had happened to Garrett to cause him to miss 3 consecutive days of school. Could be serious. Garrett, however, didn't seem at all perturbed by Kira's subtle wisecrack. He just looked indifferent. You know, to be honest, I'm kind of relieved that you guys came. Huh? I turned to look at Kira, who looked just as confused as I was. What do you mean? Something happened to me last week, but I'm not really sure how to explain it. I tried telling my parents about it, but neither one of them believed anything I had to say. You can imagine how frustrating that'd be. Whoa, slow down. What happened? My bad. I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself, huh? His gaze shifted away from us as he shuffled nervously on the edge of his bed. Seconds passed before he finished collecting his thoughts and snapped back to the real world. He turned his head back towards us, but focused his stare at the ground. I just need you both to know before I tell you anything that what I'm about to say is the honest truth. Yeah, sure. He cleared his throat. It happened last Friday. I left school later than usual that day. I usually get rides home from a friend, but he left his car lights on that morning, which must have killed the battery. So, after sticking around to help him out a few, I decided to head home by myself. He fumbled awkwardly with his thumbs and paused briefly, as if he's trying to collect his thoughts or choose his next words a little more carefully. A few minutes after I turned onto Riverside, I started to hear this droning-like sound. There we go, it's the hum again. I interjected. This was starting to sound familiar. So, like a humming noise. Yeah, I guess you could say that. It was a pretty low-tone hum, though. Anyway, so I heard this noise, right? I just shrugged it off. It's probably just a jet or something flying over the mountains, I said to myself. I can't imagine what else could possibly produce that kind of sound from all the way up there. The mountains? But that's not the most bizarre part, not by a long shot. A few seconds after hearing the noise, I found myself walking up the far end of Riverside along the edge of the cemetery. I wasn't really paying attention, so I figured I'd just been daydreaming and walked right past the bridge. I thought it was especially strange, though, considering the cemetery is a solid 15-minute walk from the bridge. You must have been really spacing out. This is starting to sound like Valerie. I wonder if there's a connection between her spacing out all the time and the fact that she told us that she had been hearing the hum. Yeah, you'd probably give Val a run for her money. Well, this is where it gets really weird. And I'm gonna have to be totally mean and end it here because once again I'm over time, but things keep getting really interesting and I just want to keep playing and finding out what's going on. So I don't know, I'm starting to form a bit of a theory in my head that I don't know. I don't want to say anything because I'm actually really good at predicting stuff and like ruining things for other people because I tend to be right about stories. So I'm just going to keep my thoughts to myself. But I do think there's more to Valerie than we know, and I'm super excited for next episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like on this video, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day!